Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gerardo Poli.
And this, oh, sorry. Okay.
One of the best bits of advice I've ever received was to find good mentors and to learn from them. Trusted people who have already done what you're trying to do now. I've been fortunate throughout my career to have some fantastic mentors to help guide me, but I realize that they'd be hard to find and also hard to commit the time to one. This is why we've gathered some of the best minds from the veterinary world and squeezed them for their wisdom so that you don't have to learn the hard way.
With the help of our guests, we flip the veterinary profession on its back and explore its soft underbelly to find the tips, tools, and inspiration that you'll need to build the career that you've always wanted.
I'm Gerardo Poli.
I'm Hubert Hemstra, and this is the Vet Vault.
When we started organising today's episode with our guest, he was neck deep or shoulder deep into clinical cow practice. But the last few weeks have seen some major changes in the life of Cody Creelman, cow vet.
Up until about 3 weeks before we recorded this episode, Dr. Cody Creelman was a veterinarian, multiple practice owner, and digital storyteller based in Alberta, Canada. Cody has shared his story in real time on social media by creating entertaining and educational videos of his daily adventures. With over 20 million video views, he has created a very loyal following of ranchers, veterinary professionals, and the general public. I will say that as someone with no clinical interest in production animal work, I have until recently never watched any of his videos, which is my loss. I've discovered that his videos are tons of fun, and his can-do positive attitude towards work is truly inspiring.
So it was a total shock to his fans and to anyone researching him for a podcast when he announced he was quitting clinical work and pursuing new adventures. Join us for an insightful conversation about change, passion, fun, fear, and what the future holds for Dr. Cody Creelman.
Well, let's jump in. Welcome to the podcast, Cody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not sure what do we call you at the moment. If it's Cody Creelman, cow vet, or what do we call you? What's your new title?
I haven't figured it out yet either. I like the sounds of retired vet. That's okay.
Cody Creelman, unemployed vet.
Yeah, unemployed works too. Somebody just did a blog spot on me. What did they call me? They called me an entrepreneur, former veterinarian.
Oh, wow.
And family man.
Oh, well, they're all true, but former veterinarian's a bit wrong. That's a veterinarian.
Yeah, exactly. Once a veterinarian, always a veterinarian, unless you lose your license, I guess. So,
is that an easy thing to do?
It is an extremely difficult thing to do. I tell vet students this all the time. It is nearly impossible to lose your license in Canada.
I've spoken to a couple young veterinarians who've been taken to the board, and it scares the absolute shit out of them. And one of the biggest fears when we ask them is like, "What are your biggest fears?" It's like fears of getting sued, and fear of be taken and losing your license.
Yeah, there's not in Canada. There's not much of a litigation culture here. Certainly, people get sued, and we have a very sort of British style type of legal system, but it's not anything nearly what it is in the States. So, like, getting sued is not something. That's only if I'm thinking about truly wrongdoing somebody within the labor code. The personal damages, emotional damages, stuff like that, that's still pretty difficult to do up in Canada, but it's possible. But yeah, our Vet Med Association or complaints director, he's the nicest guy in the world. I was terrified of him when I was a graduate, because that's what you think. You're like, oh, they're against us, but that's not true at all. It's protecting the public interest, protecting the public. So there is absolutely, it is very difficult. There was a veterinarian recently in my province who did lose his license, but he went to the tribunal. Oh, it must be like 6 or 7 times over the last 7 years.
Okay, it
And
probably sounds like as if there's probably a reason for why he lost his license. So I hope there was a legit reason. So, but I suppose we'll come back to the place where you're at now. But Hubert shared with me that in Dave Nichols' podcast, Blunt Dissection, you shared quite openly about your journey into vet school and your journey through vet school. And I suppose, without recapping that, um, what kind of things did you learn about your journey that you could share to our listeners?
Yeah, I definitely appreciated my conversation with Dave. It always kind of lends itself as kind of timestamps in your journey and career. So I remember that conversation well, and he's a great guy. I've learned a ton, over this journey of leaving my clinical practice, leaving the place that I thought I was going to be for the next 40 years. It has been, I think, the biggest lesson was what I learned from other people from sharing my story openly. And as you guys know, I typically share most of what's going on in my life through the various channels. So what happened is just the thousands of messages that rolled in when I announced that I was leaving my clinical practice of people telling me their story, and how similar it is to a lot of people, or a lot of people opening up to me and saying, like, I'm in a position right now, and you've now just given me the little bit extra strength that I needed to move on, to do what is right, to do what you should be doing. It's just, I think the biggest lesson is just an appreciation for how many people live in fear for not making a move in life.
Mm. Wow, that's and kind of like making a move or taking action on something. And like, how long did you did you learn that through your process? Because from what I understand, your journey into vet school was pretty hard, and you tried and tried and tried. But is that something you learned from vet school, like taking action and backing yourself and
Well, no, I don't. I guess, in it was part of the first step, and I think my superpower is just believing in myself, right? Believing and investing in myself. So when I'm faced with two decisions, and one is what is the one where I'm investing back into myself, that's usually the right decision for me. So I see seeds of that developing when I was in vet school, but it is still always hard, for me to start sharing my story on social media. That was a scary thing to overcome, right? Believing in myself that I feel like doing the storytelling is the right thing for me, and the same thing for making the decisions I made to leave my practice. Believing in myself, but it was not easy. Like, there was days, there was weeks where I was going to the gym at night, just raging, listening to these like powerful motivational like YouTube videos, which I never do, just trying to like pump my brain into a place of like, face the fear and do what is right.
mm,
It's super cliche. It's like almost embarrassing to say, but yeah, that was like blasting in my eardrums, lifting weights, being like, I need to just do everything that's scary because it's the only way forward.
what you said there was something that was really powerful. And it's kind of like you made a choice aligned with your values, as opposed to, because some people live their lives and they think happiness comes from buying nice cars or awesome toys and things like that. But then the spike of happiness goes away, and then they got to find something new or whatever. But when they take action in alignment with their values, like it doesn't really matter whether or not the decision made them happy or not. It's the fact that they're living in accordance to what's important to them. Is that kind of how it felt for you?
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. And part of that is maybe a little too optimistic, but I always talked about how I have never had a bad day. I've never had a day in my practice career where I did not want to run out the door and get to work. Like it was 100% maximal happiness. And then I remember the 1% day, right? There was just one little sort of sliver of like, ooh, what the hell is that? What is that? What is that feeling? Maybe I would want to stay home today. That's, just that. And I'm not expecting everybody to have perfect days all the time, but I did. I was 100% maximally happy. I was able to do everything I wanted to. But as the practice was changing strategically, I knew in the core of my ethics and beliefs that just was not the right place. And there was a lot of times that I was ready to quash it down, that I was like, well, maybe I could live with it. We got a family here, a lot of security here, a big paycheck here. But I've always spoke to students too, of like, just do what makes you happy. You'll find it. So yeah, you're exactly right. And then that 1% of unhappiness turned to 10%, turned to 25%. And then I knew, I was like, the last thing I want is for me to become a bitter, resentful person.
It's a very, very brave step to take, because I want to say a lot of people, probably the majority of people, just put up with it because of that. It's very comfortable in that rut. That rut might not be the best place, but once you're in it, it's scary outside of it, and you put up with a lot. For a lot of people, and I count myself as one of them, there has to be a pretty hard push to make you jump to that next thing. So congratulations! It's a big brave move.
I suppose then the next question is, right, okay, so you made the call, and you find yourself now, right, and but what you said before was actually, it's almost like the epitome of confidence, right? In that you have faith in yourself to be able to work shit out, right? So how do you feel now? Is it a feeling of freedom, or is it a feeling of still uncertainty and so forth? Like, is the unleashing and untaking off the shackles of where you were, was it liberating for you, or what's your thoughts where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. Extremely liberating. The best part of it is to not have fear in what anybody else is going to think about any of my actions at this point, right? And I'm not saying it's bad actions, but just making those decisions, and not worrying about what sort of repercussions there's going to be. It's 100% liberating and free. I remember the day after I had heard back from my lawyer and everything was done, I just had this feeling of, I don't have to feel that anymore. I don't have to feel this sort of like expectation, that I could literally do whatever I wanted. Was very freeing. So it was all worth it. That euphoria. I have this catch line: everything good in life is hard, right? That becoming a veterinarian is really good, but it's also really hard. Having kids is really, really hard, but it's also really, really good. Having a spouse is really, really good, but it's also very, very hard. And that was the same thing for this. Like you can't have both. You can't have good and easy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I must admit it's a hard thing. I'm sure for most of your audience. I certainly, I've been watching a bunch of your videos to try and get to know you for this, and they just very entertaining. And what strikes me is how much fun you seem to be having, and it seems so genuine. I know you're on camera, so initially I was critical, going, "Yeah, he's faking it. Nobody can love work that much," but you genuinely do seem to love it. How do you stay that motivated? Where's that drive and that motivation from?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I've said this a couple times of like, I don't need to convince anybody of my passion. I have 400 videos. Go watch and see it for yourself. It's me saying that I was extremely passionate and absolutely loved what I do. There's video documentation, and you can't fake it for 400 videos.
No,
you're exactly right.
Exactly.
I love it so much. I'm in love with this profession, right? People have asked me why cows, right? It has nothing to do with being a cow vet. It is being a veterinarian. I am in love with the future, with the past, the history, the politics, the business, small animal orthopedics, large animal medicine. Like, I just really, really love all aspects of this profession. But the biggest thing for me is I've never forgot how grateful I was to be in this position either, because I remember how sick I felt every single day before I got that letter into vet school. And I've always sort of lived with the thought of remembering what that would feel like. But imagine if you had to do that for the rest of your life if you didn't get into vet school, because there's tens of thousands, there's hundreds of thousands of people who've now lived the rest of their lives that, for whatever circumstance, whether that be family or academics or financial, that didn't get to fulfill their dream.
Yeah.
And I got to live the dream. I got to fulfill it, and I didn't have to live the rest of my life thinking what if. So that level of gratefulness I've always taken with me, and I always try to talk to people about it, of like, could you imagine if you didn't get to fulfill this out? I don't know where my life would have been, but I'm incredibly grateful. So that gratefulness, I think, is a lot of what drives that just smile at the end of the day.
And what, there's got to be stuff you didn't like. What is there anything about
he puts his hand up a big asshole.
Yeah, well,
and
this
gets
is
covered in
it.
shit all the time, right?
Well, look,
Okay.
that's exactly it. I look at it and I go, well, it's snowing outside. You've covered in cow poo. And to a lot of people, that's not super romantic, and yet you are relishing in it. Were there things that get you down or got you down?
The only thing that ever got me down was in terms of not being able to be myself, right? So that sort of expectation, anything that kind of held me back from being what I am, was the frustrating part. But in terms of like the actual job, I loved every aspect. I've gotten this question 1,000 times from students or interviews, or like, what do you not like about your job? And I always just refuse to answer it. I'm like, I like all of it. I love all of it, because it's all part and parcel. So yeah, it's there could be somebody could say there's parts of it that are monotonous, right? Standing there and preg testing 1,000 cows. But like, I'm not even thinking about that part. I'm engaged in conversation with my farmers, which are my friends, my family, right? So like, there was always so much more good in the bad, that I never really thought about the bad. But like, yeah, so you smell all the time.
It's okay. It's okay. You're married. You don't have to go.
You don't realize how bad you smell until you're standing in line at the grocery store. Or the best one is if you go for a haircut, and when they spray your hair with the misting bottle, and it kind of liberates all the day's smell.
Or they're combing through it, and it's like there's sieving out bits of hair, like bits of like grass and poop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My wife Cody is a vet as well, and at a stage she did some smallies work, and then she did some work at the university, cow work, some pregnancy diagnosis work, and she'd get home from work, and my one son, who was probably about 3 at the time, would run to her at the gate, and it'd stop before he'd like run to hug her, and then stop and say, "Which work were you at?" And then she'd say cow work. I go, "No, I'm not going to hug you."
Yeah, so I love all aspects of veterinary medicine. There's certainly there's difficult things, but I kind of operate more in the averages, right? And the averages always outweigh any sort of the negativity, and they always, those challenges, or overcoming those challenges, that provides us with a sense of achievement too, right? You overcome. You preg test 1,000 cows at -40 Celsius all day long. That is a mentally challenging thing. But then at the end of the day, you get to talk about that achievement, right? You did it. You get to celebrate in that with your team. You get to celebrate in that with your clients. So there's always the silver lining.
How did you actually? I'm interested to know, from vet school to practice ownership, was that just a pathway you knew you were going to take, or something you fell into? Like, you don't have to tell us the details of what happened and why you left and things, but yeah, what was practice ownership for you?
Yeah. No, not part of the plan. I'm almost a little bit embarrassed talking about, where I've ended up in terms of that plan. My goal was to get into vet school, right? And then once I got into vet school, it was to be the best veterinary or vet student I could be. And then once I had graduated, it was just to be the best cow vet I could be. And when it came to practice ownership, it was kind of like a vague sort of thought in the back of my mind. But 2 years out into practice, I was offered a quarter of the practice that I was at. I did an assessment. Everything looked good. Went to a few different banks. The first few said no, and one said yes, and then it was a done deal, right? And the social media marketing, a lot of that, or like my social media involvement, a lot of that was just based off of me trying to find my niche within the business. Me trying to just find my strengths, right? Looking in a mirror, having self-awareness, and being like, where do I fit into this picture? I'm an okay numbers guy, but I'm not the numbers guy. I'm an okay operations guy, but I'm not great. But like, I'm a great marketer, right? I'm good salesman. So it was just, in terms of my business, it was just always me sort of um, looking at my strengths and trying to double down on those, and being a perpetual optimist, looking for opportunities, and that just kind of snowballed into more ownership. And now I'm also partners at 6 other vet clinics. It's not my clinical home, but I spend a lot of time running and managing those types of things. And that's kind of what my trajectory is on as well, just because I love the profession. So I would have never ever guessed in vet school, or before, or even immediately after that, I was like shooting for this career in business. But it's just, I really love the profession. So that's me investing back into the profession.
Mm.
That
Wow.
reminds me of a quote I heard the other day that fits perfectly with you. I think it says, don't worry about what to do with your life. Just do what's in front of you with as much elegance as you can, and the next thing will show up.
I don't know if there's elegance in preg testing. Maybe there is, right? With,
No, well, this is exactly
with how he handles that ultrasound probe. I just want an ultrasound probe that has an eyepiece that I can like not to look at a screen.
Man.
Just like, wow.
That is
I feel like I'm from the Borg from Star Trek or something, right?
that company is spectacular. You guys, that I was just talking to the developer in Scotland this week, about the technology that they have already inside of that thing that they haven't even turned on. You're exactly right. They could have your real-time Twitter feed in there. The heads up display telling you the cow's information. They've been able to spatially map cows' uteruses and
what?
and train you. Like, they could put an Oculus Rift on you with a handpiece,
Eh?
and they could train you in Cody's style of how he preg tests. Like, you could have like different veterinarians around the
Wow.
world training you in an Oculus Rift. It is spectacular technology. Anyways, I digress. See, I get excited about preg testing.
So you got your hand up the butt, right? Okay. And then,
Yeah.
so they're like the wrong side. And then Cody's voice comes in. Hey, no, dumb shit. No. You absolutely failed. Get your hand back out.
Absolutely. Maybe they could invent some haptic feedback as well, so they can feel my arm guiding them along.
Okay, look, this is going to go to full on Cody assist mode here. Relax your hands.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's incredible. Technology is amazing. Like, when I saw that you used a lot of drone footage, and I always like wonder, like I love filming, and I love tech around filming, and try to think of different ways how to capture stories from patients that help share the passion that I have for our profession. And so I was really engaged by your videos because of the technology around it. But half the time I'm thinking about what kind of camera is he using there? What kind of camera is that? Started with a GoPro, and fairly so it's not a GoPro anymore now. Now it's like, okay, he can adjust it now, so it's a flip top kind of camera now. So, but well, sorry, this is probably the first time ever that Hubert has allowed me to ask questions. So I'm going to tell us just no.
Hang on,
Go back to your barn. For everyone that's listening, Hubert is filming from his barn.
It's because it's the first time ever that you've done any research.
So, actually, one thing that I might ask, and maybe you got some insight into this, but I think it's a how would you say? Okay, so we're veterinarians, right? We come out of
Cody used to be a veterinarian.
Yeah, that's right. You're a family man and sells German knives. Okay, so we're veterinarians. We come out and we're trained to do day one competency skills and whatever. And somewhat, the first thing we tackle is the mindset around, oh my God, we're trying to sell something, right? Then and you got to find whatever that means for you and how it aligns with your values and so forth. But then I think the thing that really then hits them next, or at least what I see, is the whole leadership. Like they all of a sudden they become people who are in charge of a team. Then they're somehow they're influencing the culture, and then they changing and influencing the direction of a business. I don't know if you found that, was that a natural thing for you dealing with people as a veterinarian, or was it something you found that was challenging?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely challenging. There is a lot to unpack there, but you're exactly right. There was never, I would say, and for me, an easy part of that, because the results can be so dramatic that it is a lot of hard work, right? There's always tons and tons of challenges to go along with those things. But I guess I just, like I do in everything in my life, saw what needed to be done and learned and approached it with as much elegance as I possibly could, with as much passion as I possibly could. So you're right. Thinking back in terms of the salesmanship of veterinary medicine, not something that I would have thought that I would have been a naturally good at. I wasn't the kid selling, flowers door to door, or some trading baseball cards. Like that just wasn't really my DNA. But as that opportunity presented itself, I saw it was a necessary part of business. So how is that going to best fit my style? The same thing with culture and leadership. It was hard. There's lots of challenging things. This coming in as a young practice owner, earning the respect, getting the respect from older staff, getting buy-in from other people. It is all absolutely challenging, but it's something that you just have to work really hard at, right? It's I don't think any of us are born with that sort of natural behavior, but you just have to recognize you have to put in the hours, right? It's any skill. I wasn't great when I started preg testing, and I wasn't great the first time I did a cat spay. Like there's just hours that need to go in order for you to come out on the other side. So yeah, it is always hard. It is always hard.
What have you learned in the last couple of years about yourself that has surprised you, that's new knowledge to you compared to Cody 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think just an interesting thing, and I don't know where it really fits in, but in terms of being a creator, I think is the most shocking to me. To be, I was a relatively decent student. I had to work really hard. But like this thought of being a creator seemed very strange that it started to crop up. Like with my video stuff, I had no experience editing videos. I had no experience shooting. I'd never taken photography. I would have never viewed myself as an artist or a creator. But in the process of telling myself, okay, I'm going to start putting out some videos, and the only reason I picked video format is because we only have 3 different modalities that we communicate right? We have the written word, we have video, and we have audio.
Mm-hmm.
So you only have three to choose from. And I saw that I had this sort of affinity towards being able to talk on a camera. That was kind of my strength. I wasn't a great writer, and I enjoy the audio format, but then from there it was like, okay, so you're going to do video, so you have to figure it out. And I had never shot video on my phone. I'd never edited video. I'd never done audio modulation or color correction. I didn't know how to get the video from my phone onto my computer. I didn't know what iMovie was at the time. I didn't know how to upload it onto YouTube. But for me, after doing all of that, the process of vlogging, the process of creating video of yourself has like changed my soul. Like it has completely changed the core of my being in a thousand different ways. Like when you talk about self-awareness, mm-hmm. when you've watched hundreds of hours of yourself interacting with your staff or interacting with your family, it like gives you a level of awareness, right? You're like, whoa, I talked like that. I said it like that. I completely ignored that question. Like those types of things. And then on top of that, just like the beauty that I see in the world now, because I've captured so much, right? Mm-hmm. Just that appreciation for that overall beauty. So like, I see the sky differently now. I see a field differently now. I see, somebody smile differently now as a creator, as somebody who wants to capture that and share that with the world. I would have never, ever guessed that in myself of being this, that sort of artistic part of me. I didn't think that existed at all.
What a great answer. I love that answer.
Beautiful.
Isn't it? And that's what's supposed to be the key to happiness, is that being present in the moment and seeing what's around you and seeing it for what it is. So what a great way to learn it. That's not something I ever considered. Start vlogging, everyone.
Right? It's just this doing this scary thing, but then also, I guess, keep reanalyzing of what parts of that do you love. Mm-hmm. And it has just opened a whole world and a whole world of opportunity for me, right? That has become now such a huge part of all of the opportunity that now just oozes from life because I did that scary thing and reinvested back into the things that I loved. Like I'm the phone calls I get and the conversations I have, in terms of opportunity to be a video producer, right? Like it's, I would have never guessed that. Sometimes I think that there's more opportunity doing that than as me being a clinical veterinarian at this point, right? Because there's just so much interest, and I have no idea where it comes from. But yeah, the week after I retired, I got like 1,000 phone calls to come do like video shoot projects. I'm like, where is this coming from? I'm not even a video producer.
In front of the camera or behind the camera or both?
Everything. Yeah, everything. Absolutely.
And so do you still do all of your editing yourself? Do you outsource it?
So currently, yes. When I was in the throes of practice, I did have some help to break down the videos. So like if you looked on my Instagram TV, I did have somebody who was taking my vlogs and then was chopping them up into more usable content. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the editing, yeah, I do 99%, unless I have a second shooter with me. Then they would edit their part and then I would put that back into my video. So I do have a videographer. He's a good friend. He just lives down the street from me. So sometimes we'll go out and do some crazy projects together, where I'm looking for a more sort of I guess cinematic flair. The last week, just for fun, just because I had this vision. This is probably getting into the weeds too much, and it's probably going to confuse everybody. But me and my buddy, we went out to a ranch last week to recreate a visual representation of Virgil's Georgics, the poem Georgics. Are you guys familiar with Virgil?
I know the name, but I don't know the poem.
So Virgil, I think it was in 63 AD, wrote this poem called the Georgics, which is essentially an ode and a textbook to agriculture. So it's a very beautiful poem, but it also has very practical knowledge. But it's a celebration of the whole of agriculture. So take a listen to it. It's on YouTube. So just look up the Georgics by Virgil. There's a very great British version of it, obviously translated. And it's just so descriptive and beautiful and just captures the essence. So for fun, me and my buddy, we went out to this ranch and I had this vision to recreate the Georgics in how I saw it for this specific operation. And there was no sponsor for it. There was no brand associated with it. It was just like pure video art, just because I wanted to. And that feels really, really nice, right? That's me flexing my creative side, which I had no idea I had, just because I feel like this should exist in the world.
I love what you're saying around the creativity. I mean, and it sounds like a journey to mastery, right? Because you're never quite going to get to the level of, plateauing in your creativity, because there's going to be a new piece of equipment that comes out that adds a certain another angle or some other kind of way of shooting something, another way of editing something. So it's this continual pursuit of mastery, which is kind of like fueling it. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love capturing the things that I love capturing, right? I love sharing the story of agriculture. I love sharing the story of veterinary medicine. There's a reason I'm not going out and shooting like muscle cars, right? It's just not something that I'm passionate about. So I love capturing that in different ways, in creative ways, and I love sharing that with the world.
I got one question. Those hay chopping machines, right? You see those videos, right? Someone stands in front of it and then all of a sudden they come out the other end in a cube of hay. Do they get like chewed up and shit? Is that fake? Is that a real thing?
Hay chopping machine.
Can you step in those hay baling machines and come out the other end as a human hay bale?
You could not. You would meet a very quick end. Absolutely.
I probably saved someone's life.
I was just about to say
you that question. Okay.
You absolutely did. Never try that.
You probably just saved Gerardo's life, because he's been Alex, get the camera.
Just wait. I'm gonna put my GoPro on my chest. I'm gonna run in. Actually, no, it needs to be stabilized. Let me put the gimbal on it. And I run in, and it's like, does this sound like a good thing? Actually, no. You know what? I had a conversation with Cody. Cody said, "Don't do that. I think it's 1,000 pieces.
Don't climb in the haymaking machine."
Yeah,
I stupidly believed that was possible until right this moment. Thank you.
No, you would. Yeah, it wouldn't be good.
So how did the vlogging thing start, Cody? I'm sure it's been asked and discussed before, but what was the trigger for that?
Yeah, so it was a lot of different things. It was my pursuit within my practice to carve out my niche as a marketer, right? So I saw this need within the practice to market our services. What we were doing was great in terms of the services we were providing, but with all good service, you have to market it to some extent. And I was not sort of involved with social media at all before that. I didn't have a cell phone in vet school. I was one of those holdouts for Facebook. Why do I need a Facebook account? I don't understand that. But this kind of slow, gradual progression of okay, so this is what Twitter is. Okay, I understand that. This is what Instagram was. That kind of resonated with me a little more because it was the visual sort of storytelling of it, that capturing of that beautiful moment and sharing that with the world. But it was really difficult for me to get my full story across, right? You take a picture, you add some text, but it's not always right there, at least not for my communication style. I felt like it wasn't complete. And then Snapchat and the video app Vine were coming online at that point. So I was kind of an early adopter with both of those, just me not thinking there were going to be anything, just figuring out, okay, this is a new social platform. Is there any opportunity within my business to be able to be storytelling on this? And it was really with Snapchat where I just started this chronological storytelling of my day. That was the first time I turned the video camera onto my face, which is terrifying for most people. Most people hate the sound of their own voice, let alone seeing themselves talk all cross-eyed and with nose hair sticking out, and right. So it was a scary thing to turn that camera onto my face. And I just started very simple. I did this thing called the Schnauzer weather report. So I would turn the camera onto myself and I would say, now over to Phineas with the weather. So Phineas is my little miniature schnauzer that goes everywhere with me. And then the camera would turn and the next scene would be him in some sort of inclement weather situation. So like we would get 3 feet of snow and I would say, now over to Phineas with the weather. And then I would open up the sunroof in my pickup truck and 3 feet of snow would drop on us in the cab. Or it would be like, hey, it would be like a severe hailstorm and we would be parked at a feedlot waiting it out, and I would say, now over to Phineas with the weather, and then I'd open the window and all the hail would come blowing in at us. So it was like a really stupid, simple little thing, but that was just kind of my start of I'm kind of a silly guy, and sharing something that farmers love, which is weather reports. So it was kind of just the start of that, and this digital storytelling of my day of with Snapchat. So I would just turn the camera onto my face and say, hey, I'm heading out to preg test 300 cows today, and then I'd usually have a little bit of video on Snapchat of like the probe going in the cow's butt or the farm dog or the farmer. And then I would recap it on my drive home. I would say, oh, that was a great day. Had so much fun. Really great conception rate, really great ranchers. I had such a wonderful day. And then I would, after that, usually do a few seconds of me lip syncing to Taylor Swift on the drive home. So it's just like this day. Was my journal entry of the day. But with Snapchat, the story disappears, right? You have 24 hours, it disappears. There isn't great search or discovery. At that time, there wasn't even the Our Stories function. This was just me individually sending it to people that I had amassed a following to. So that was like the start of it. And then I got a phone call one day, and it was from the executive producer from the Dr. Pol show. So the incredible Dr. Pol had called me, or his producer, and his wife was the social media manager, and she'd been following me on Snapchat and convinced her husband to give me a call. So we had a great chat, and he had asked he said, typically we'd send out a production crew to do a sizzle reel. So, this 30 seconds to 3 minutes sort of reel of you, but you're already shooting videos. So why don't you just try it yourself? So I did one, and I really enjoyed the process, right? I really enjoyed it. I edited it. I sent it off, and then I never heard from him again. Okay. So a couple months goes by, and then I made the decision. I now knew that I could edit one video. So I made the decision the day before my 31st birthday. My wife was like 8 months pregnant, and I was like, I'm gonna start vlogging now. This is like 4 years ago. I'm gonna start vlogging now. So I shot video again all day, sat down, was at my computer till 3 a.m. and uploaded the video, and part of the story, this is the untold story, so you guys are getting exclusive content right now. So when I posted that video, I sent that producer a text of the link. Okay, no response. The next day goes by, I shoot a video, I edit it, I upload it to YouTube, I send him a link. I did it again and again and again, and I finally stopped at like 35 days in a row of sending him a text every single day without getting a response. I finally did end up meeting up with him. I was speaking in Indiana, and I drove across like 2-3 states to have a beer with this guy, and he said some very kind things to me. He said that I was a great video producer, that he was fearful for his job because if I got into video production, I would put him out of business, and talked about kind of my natural sort of eye for capturing video. So that's like a bit of the behind the scenes.
Okay.
So some of it was kind of like an fu back to him of like, how dare you never call me back. But in that there was something so much bigger. So it was really this hyper local marketing, right? That I wanted to become the cow vet of my area. I wanted to create enough media and content around cattle veterinary medicine that there was no other question that that you were going to call me. So when you were a farmer and you were pissed off at your vet or couldn't get a hold of your vet and you were thinking of hiring a new veterinarian, that I was the first person that came to mind. So when I said cow vet, you said Cody, right? Like that was the whole point of it, to show that I was personable, to show that I practice high quality medicine, that I got the job done, that I was somebody you wanted to be around. So all of those things were very important for me to grow the practice, and it was extremely successful. So it did exactly that. It got a large following locally. The clientele were some of the largest fans of it. It upsold a ton of stuff, right? So you doing the service at one ranch, and then the other rancher sees that his neighbor's doing that, so then he has to do it, and you just go on and on and on, right? So yeah, I was getting tons of clients calling in that were fans of the vlog, that wanted to be part of that story, that wanted me as their veterinarian, and I had this great team behind me to be able to capture all of that. So I grew the practice immensely because of it. So that's, you know, the reason why I continued, right? You can only do the FU move so long to somebody. So there had to be a real tangible reason for that. You know, so that was part of it. But then there was this kind of creeping up of this other thing that I did not expect, and that was this like inspiration or this motivation for veterinary students, young veterinary professionals, pre-veterinary students, that I had no idea. I did not set off to be an inspiration by any means. I'm just doing my own thing. And it became a very big part of my professional and personal fulfillment, getting these messages from people saying like, I'm at the end of my rope. I am in a dark, deep place with studying, and your videos are the only thing that's keeping me going. Not because they're seeing veterinary medicine, but because they see that there's a veterinarian who has gone through this, that has had struggles, and is still smiling at the end of the day, that it still looks like it's worth it, right? And that's one thing that's missing in our profession to a great extent, that level of positivity. Nothing kills me more than this negative culture within veterinary medicine. You know, this perpetual woe is me, complaining about clients, complaining about staff, complaining about everything. And I'm still so incredibly grateful for what this profession is, and what it has given me and my family. And I see that I'm one of very few that is this very positive light in the profession. You know, you'll never find me speaking ill of another veterinarian. You'll never find me speaking ill of the profession. Of like, I think every sort of challenge brings this great opportunity for us. And it resonated, that sort of attitude resonated extremely well with the community. So that was just another sort of personal thing, and that turned into speaking engagements, and that turned into just a thousand different things. So there's a lot of why I vlog in that.
There's a massive thing in that background there, and that all that story, right, was the thing that you actually created your own influence. Right, you're like a person of influence on social media, on YouTube, and having a massive impact on veterinary students around the world. And it wasn't because someone actually kind of picked you and created you. You created that yourself, and yeah, like, so you created your own influence, and the message that I think is a key one is that you didn't feel like as if, you know, you were selfish in the process. You know, you did it for a greater good. Each time you were doing it, you saw the impact. The impact was on your practice. The impact was on the local community. The impact was on vet students. The impact. So shit, man, what's your impact now? Like, you know, so you could, I don't know, like it just sounds like as if I'm not saying that you should be happy that where you're at now, but almost like you have the ability, because you've spent and invested so much time in this, to have a dramatic impact on the world. And what do you
Ah,
think that could be? Right? Thinking bigger
yes.
here, right?
No, so you're ahead of the curve. So let me introduce you to Accelerate DVM. Okay, so this
Mm.
is the first time anybody is hearing about it. So you guys are good interviewers, man. You're just drawing out all the good stuff. So so I'm not going back to clinical practice, and I do have some other other things on the go. But one of the main things that I'm doing in 2020 and setting up is what's called Accelerate DVM. So this is with several different veterinarians that are very in tune and in line with what I'm doing, and then also people within the veterinary professional space. What we're doing is we have 12 US dates set for 2020. We'll be releasing and announcing those dates very soon. And what we're doing is we are investing all of that knowledge and passion back into young veterinary students or young veterinarians. So what the target audience would be 1 year out to about 7 years out, and instill in them a lot of the things that we've been talking about, this identifying your strengths. What is the opportunity within this profession, encouraging them to invest back into the profession, back into themselves, encourage them that they can make a great life for themselves within this profession, that there's so much. So what we're doing is we're going to 12 different US cities, and we're talking to these groups of young veterinarians about how do you assess a veterinary practice, how do you promote leadership, how do you promote culture, what are the challenges, how do you read through a balance sheet, a P&L sheet, how do you get the money, how do you talk to banks as a young veterinary professional. So just like all of the steps, I think that you would be looking towards, that you would have no idea if you were a 3-year out graduate working in a veterinary practice and wanting to invest back into yourself and invest back into the profession, but you don't know how to make that leap. You're not getting that level of mentorship. The top level mentors in this profession are the ones that are identifying the superstars within their practice and giving them all of this information so they can leave, right? So they can go and do their thing and follow their true dreams. They're not the ones that are suppressing that, right? Because that's kind of the natural human tendency, is to be like, this guy's a superstar, so I want to keep him with me forever. This keep my precious. Whereas this is encouraging young veterinarians to really just have all of the tools necessary for them to take that next step.
It's incredible. That's an
I don't know why you have
approach.
to exclude people older like me.
Well, anybody can come. That's just usually
The
at
front
that
row
point.
is reserved for the people with eye problems.
Yeah, usually by then they've either left the profession or they've just given up completely, right? So yeah,
I think you'll be
become
surprised.
apathetic.
I think you'll be surprised.
Yeah, no, it is not at all meant to be excluding anyone, and it's much more than just an event. It truly is uh, an a mentorship in its whole of throughout that year. People are going to have access to a high level of support to be able to make these decisions. Me and my team yesterday alone, we're talking to this young veterinarian. He's a brand new grad and wants to pursue practice ownership, and everybody else in his life is telling him he's crazy. Is telling him like, it's too soon. Take your time. And has all this opportunity, and he wants to manage a practice. He doesn't even necessarily want to be, a clinical veterinarian 7 days a week. So we mentored him through that process of how, what do you need to look for? What do you need to assess? How do you talk to banks? And how are you going to create that leadership? One of his biggest things was how am I going to get buy-in from the other staff because I'm so young? And I said, yeah, it's going to be hard. Absolutely. It's hard for everybody. It's hard if you're 35 or 45 or 55 or 25. There's going to be these big challenges. So there's so much sort of and it is selfish. There's so much, I get so much, like personal fulfillment from helping somebody like that. It's just part of what I've been doing, and I've found this team that's also interested in doing it. Dr. Dan Markwalder, he is a veterinarian down in the U.S. He owns 16 vet practices. He's part of this team. His number one question when he meets anybody, any veterinarian, his number one question, he says, "Hi, how are you doing? Who are you mentoring?" And that's a really important takeaway from that, of that mindset of calling everybody he ever meets out, whether you're a new grad or you're on your way to retirement. If we should always be looking to mentor somebody in this profession, because it is everything. That connection is so incredibly important.
Like, and I can understand the graduation year bracket, because I was at a conference with Hills only about 2 weeks ago, and I talked about the plateau. When you've reached this point where you're like, is this it for me, right? Is this and for some people it depends on your practice and the level of medicine and surgery that they practice at, right? You could reach your plateau in 12 months, right? And then what does it feel for them? It feels like, they feel too comfortable at the early stages, and they're like, actually, I like this feeling of security and comfort because I don't have to worry about stuff anymore. And then it gets to like, this feeling of anxiety. It's like, oh God, is this it? And then they start reevaluating where they're at. And then they get to this point where it's unsettled and it starts to affect their relationships outside of work, because they're really trying to decide whether or not this profession is for them anymore. And I asked the question, and it was from years from 1 to 3, how many feel like as if they plateau? And like a good chunk of them put their hand up, and especially the second and third years out, because they just reached the point where they've kind of exceeded their mentors. They've exceeded the actual support that they had. And then I asked the question, how many of you guys are thinking of leaving? And 20% put their hand up. And I think it totally, Cody, I totally agree with you. It's the stuff that they need to know. It's even just highlighting the fact that, they're at that point.
Right. Yeah. And there is no plateau. The phone call that I was on right before you guys got on, that's with my partner, Greg Andrews. Greg is in his 70s. He's been supposed to be retired for a decade now, and I own 6 other vet practices with him and a group of veterinarians, and that was our weekly check-in as a management team. But I talk to him all the time, and he has the passion and the vigor of a 20-year-old, of just like, what are the opportunities? He's just insatiable. There is he is the perfect archetype that there is absolutely no plateau in this profession. It is anything you want it to be. It is 100% mental, because he's in his 70s and he's running all around, assessing opportunities, assessing practices, talking to veterinarians. The reason that I partnered with Greg Andrews was I saw the exact same passion for the veterinary industry. So if you're passionate about this industry and passionate about everything, right? Passionate about the business, passionate about the future, then there absolutely is no plateau. There's no conceivable plateau, because he has proved it. He has been the CEO of Canada's largest equine practice. He started software companies. He's owned mixed animal practices. He's had a successful practice career. And now still when he should have been long and retired, he cannot wait to get on the phone to make that next connection, to mentor that next person, to support that next team member. There is no plateau. Absolutely.
No, and it's key that you say that, because some people just think that this is it for them, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, there's no excuse to be bored in this profession, and I was guilty of that. I at 5 years in, I thought, I'm bored, I'm tired of it. But that's just laziness, really. It's just not using your own imagination, is what it comes.
Right. So many opportunities. So yeah, I'm the retired cow vet, right? But I've been doing nothing but doing stuff within this profession from the second. I'm way busier than I expected, right? I started a digital module based consulting business the next day after I left my practice, creating high quality digital modules, basically webinars for ranchers to get access to really high value, high level consulting that I provided to my clients locally. I just use the digital platforms to be able to reach scale with that. And now I'm a consultant, like a consultant. I'm not one-on-one, but I'm disseminating herd management, welfare management, beef cattle specifically in Lebanon and all across the US and all across Canada and in the UK and in Australia. It is, there is no shortage of opportunity, right? You have to think a little bit outside of the box, right? So I'm a beef cattle consultant by trade and can do some really great things and provide a lot of value. But my limitation was how far my pickup truck could drive in a day, right? You can only drive and meet with so many people. So thinking outside of the box, leveraging video, leveraging what I've learned in e-commerce, leveraging what I've learned in terms of sales funnels and marketing. Now I can put hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars back into the beef cattle industry, back into agriculture worldwide. Like how could that be boring, right? Like you could put the mindset on of like, oh, I got to go talk to another farmer about what to vaccinate his cows with. Like, sure, you can make that boring if you want, or you could blow that shit up and make it anything you want to be, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah. I love it. That's awesome. No, it's because it keeps on getting bigger and bigger, right? The scale and the opportunity now. This unleashed Cody is now having an impact that's even bigger than what he thought before, right? So.
Exactly, in all aspects, right? And with 100% maximal satisfaction, right? Yeah, sure. Am I going to miss the day-to-day, some of the clinical stuff? Maybe, but I still get a big kick out of, I've got a lot of veterinarians under me who are calling me all the time with clinical questions, and I get just as much satisfaction being able to walk somebody, one of my veterinarians through a case and them, finding that toe abscess or making that right call as I do with clinical practice. So it's still, to me, just as rewarding. So yeah, and it has never been better. Like, could you imagine, if my birth year 84, right? The opportunities that exist now in comparison to then, and then if you take it back to say Harriet's time period, right? It has never been better to be a veterinarian. It just truly hasn't, because of the opportunity, because of the connection, because you can find the exact practice that you think fits you, the exact geography, the ability to scale, the ability to reach, the ability to inspire. It just is there's never been another time. Even with video production, like what the hell would I have done in 1984 as a veterinarian and wanted to share my story in a video format, right? What I do would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars every day, right? In a traditional sense. So it has never been better.
You'd have to mail me my VHS tape.
Right?
Man, that's really exciting stuff. When do you sleep, Cody?
I think there's this genetic variant that you can get tested for, like if you do 23andMe, that is like the sleep gene. I'm convinced I don't need to take it because I have this sleep variant gene where I can just get by on less. Every single vlog that I ever created, I was in clinical practice, right? So every single vlog I had ever edited was created between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. I remember when I first started the video editing thing, my wife looked over at me one night and said, "So are you trying to say you're never coming to bed again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying." So like, yeah, I'm just able to go on less sleep than some people. And my kids, which is like the worst thing about kids, is they distill all of your good qualities and all of your bad qualities into one little annoying human being. So I somehow was able to pass that on to my kids. They're absolute mutants when it comes to sleep. They can run on nothing and they're just perfect. They're just fine.
Yeah, unfortunately, my number three is like that. My
But
third one.
sleep is important. I'm not advocating that people get sleep deprived, and I'm not superhuman, but by any means. But yeah, I just and a lot of other things, right? I cut out a lot of stupid shit too. I don't watch Game of Thrones series. I don't watch sports. I just try to focus on the high value things. So for me, it's either my family or this, right? Doing things to promote the profession, doing things that I love and enjoy. So there's a lot of really dumb things that we can do as human beings that can suck up a lot of time. There's 24 hours in a day. Like, okay, so you go and work 10, 14, you need 6 hours sleep. You still have 8 hours to do really great things with your life. So a lot of it is also just kind of time management perspective, expectation. There's a lot of mental things I think you can do to be a high performing individual.
Yeah, totally. I have only seen half an episode of Game of Thrones.
Good, exactly. Yeah, I get that question all the time. I'm like, from a vet student, how do you do what you do? How do you have enough time? And then I ask them, have you watched Game of Thrones? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, okay, there you go.
Yeah. Well, you figured out what your key productive output was, right? The thing that if you produced a lot of, that's the thing that's going to push you forward. One was being a veterinarian, two was producing video, right? That's where you got to where you are now. So you found your niche and you just produced and produced and produced.
That's amazing. How are we doing for time, Cody? What's your day looking like?
So far so good. So yeah, nope. I have a little bit left, and yeah.
We'll wrap up some questions. Oh, actually, Hubert, you go for some questions, bro.
No, we generally wrap up with a few more generalized questions.
Absolutely.
I'm just loving this conversation. I'm just thinking, is there anything we're missing out on? I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that the listeners will be going, oh, ask him this. But we'll start with podcasts. So you're in the digital media. Have you got any favorites that you could recommend? What do we need to listen to?
Yeah, absolutely. I am. So one of the things that I wished I would have taken more classes of were just generalized business classes when I was in my undergraduate. I took some and I really enjoyed it. But I am so grateful for business podcasts now. Yeah. That is something that I consume, 90% of my media consumption would be podcasts. It is a huge space. It's just going to get bigger. So if people want to focus effort into creating any sort of media, podcasting is the future. Audio is the future. So I love the business ones. The Startup podcast by Gimlet Media. I love NPR's Planet Money and The Indicator. Those are also fascinating ones. I'm really fascinated with just technology in general. So I like to listen to what's called Twit. So This Week in Tech, it just is kind of like an overview of all of the great phones and computers and cameras and everything that's going on in the digital space. My guilty pleasure is the Joe Rogan Experience. Yeah. So it's just a great interview style. And yes, Joe is like the archetype bro, right? He certainly is such a bro. But the guests and the delivery, I think, are really great for expanding kind of things that you would never think about. You don't want to get too much in your own lane by any means. What are some other good ones? The Gary V audio experience. So Gary Vaynerchuk, for my career, was absolutely instrumental. Reading his books, Crush It, The Thank You Economy, and Jab, 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 Right Hook were huge. And Gary Vaynerchuk's podcasts, they're basically just his keynotes or different interviews that he's doing. There's some really great business tidbits coming out of that man, for sure.
Fantastic.
There's heaps there for people to listen to.
I know. I need more time to listen to. Have you got anything, Gerardo? I've got a few more actually that I've thought of.
You go for it. I've asked Cody a gazillion questions.
I want to come back to your stuff. Listening to you talk about podcasting and that what you like and what's popular. Why is your stuff so popular? Have you figured it out? Why did, because there's a heap of veterinary content out there, but a ton of it doesn't take off in a big way. What is it about your stuff that you think that people like?
So I think that the authenticity and the, I guess, humanizing of a veterinarian, I think, is what's really missing. Um, just in general society, the veterinarian is somewhat kind of shrouded in mystery, right? It's more of a title than it is a human. Certainly it's hard for us to think about that, but when we're in the profession, because we see everybody for who they are as people, right? But the public really has not gotten too many opportunities to really see behind the veil of us being humans. And I think that's what Harriet's storytelling was so beautiful in, is he talked a lot about his vulnerabilities and about what he was scared about. And to some extent, even some of that was shrouded, because if you know the true story behind Alf, there was a lot more that he could have went into, right? Alf suffered from severe depression and melancholy, which I think would have resonated even greater with the public, but kind of kept that at bay to some extent, right? So I think what I've done is just show the human side, right? That I have challenges, and that I'm a human, and I have a family, and I laugh, right? Even just seeing a veterinarian laugh at an inappropriate joke is something that the public does not see very often, right? So it is all of that. I think that's what those types of stories resonate with me. It's not specific that it's a it's a veterinarian. I think we just resonate with people's stories. That's part of being human, is loving a good story, right? But to tell a good story, you have to lend a certain level of authenticity, which that's always been at the forefront of not necessarily showing all of the good things, but like talking about some of the struggles, talking about the challenges. I've taken people along on some pretty crazy situations with my own personal life. Like, both of my kids were born on the vlogs, right? That really humanizes a person, and people connect to that very, very strongly when they see that you're just a human at the end of the day. So that's what I think I've done, is brought a certain amount of humanity to the profession.
I notice that you're not embarrassed on the podcast, on the vlogs, to say that you don't know, to be honest about your limitations, and go, no, I'm not sure about this, which I find is often lacking in our profession. There's lots of people, I'm sure I've been guilty of it. We have this thing about we have to be perfect, and we can't show any weakness to anybody. So it's embarrassing to tell the client, shit, I really don't know. I need to go and Google this. So, whereas that's the reality. Nobody's perfect, and then we set that expectation for ourselves amongst our colleagues as well. That I'm above making mistakes, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also one reason that my wife as a character on the vlog has resonated so well as well, because I'm this thing, right? I'm the Cody, which is all of this kind of insanity and thinking outside of the box and energy and creativity and all of this, and then you have this central character of my wife, who is ready to cut me down at a moment's notice and put me back in my place, right? So she's resonated so well, and that's part of it, right? That's part of that humanity that I think is lacking. And it's not just lacking in front of a camera. It's exactly what you just spoke about. It's lacking one-on-one. It's lacking in front of our clients. It's lacking in front of the people we're supposed to be mentoring. It's lacking in front of the people that we're mentees of. This false front that the profession has put on, to some extent, has been at our detriment, because that, to me, is the best thing that has ever happened to me in this profession, is that community and that connection, right? It's that connection with my clients that has been the biggest thing. The connection with my staff, the connection with my team, the connection with veterinary students. is what is so rewarding to me. It is not about the animals, it is about the people. And I think that is why we have a lot of negative things in this profession, because we're looking for this ultimate life satisfaction from saving animals' lives, and then we realize that that animals are incredibly ungrateful, that we've all performed absolute heroics, and the animal has been just as liable to turn around and bite us or kick us as they are to thank us, right? So what the true value, what the true life satisfaction from our profession comes from is that human connection. That's because we're humans, right? It's not because we're veterinarians. So you have to act like a human and be a human in order for you to really benefit from that human connection, which is then the true secret of life.
I think that would have ticked a few boxes in Huber's checklist.
I did a talk on Gerardo's online conference earlier in the year, and the title of my talk was "It's All About the People." That's it, man.
That actually, I went through a phase in my career where, like, I became a veterinarian because of the science, and then all of a sudden they took this human-animal bond. So I bought a dog, love my dog, and then it was all about treating the dog, and treating the pets and patients. But then what got me back, and what actually is fueling my passion now, is actually client connection. When I reflect upon the moments of the day when I have my biggest highs, it was the moment when I really connected with the client and we're able to develop a plan and a treatment plan and overcome barriers and in order, so in the process of connecting and building that rapport and trust, I was able to then obviously help the pet, and I feel like as if and what you said resonated with me is like the emphasis, or the where you got to start is not necessarily about what you need to do with the pet, but it all starts with the client, and it all starts just really wanting to know and connect and be with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine taking that in isolation of this would be the ultimate example. Let's say you had a fully amazing stocked, all the equipment in the world vet clinic. Okay. So you had every tool at your disposal, and you just walked into your clinic and you were the only person there. And there was just a dog or a cat that just dropped onto a conveyor belt, and you just did your job. And then you fixed it and did the surgery and did whatever you needed to do. And then you put it back on the conveyor belt. And how terrible a job would it be, right? It would be fun for the new grad for the first week. And then you would be like, what am I doing? What is this? This isn't satisfying. I get why I get the fun parts of that, right? I totally get the fun parts of that. But if you broke it down into pure isolation and you're just staring at a dog and you're just like, hey, buddy, you would go insane, right? So why do we expect that even when there's humans around us, that's supposed to be the fulfilling part, that we've, dedicated our life to this and we've improved this animal's life? I get why that's nice. And we certainly get a little piece of something from that, but the humans are everything.
Yeah, that description, I think there'll be people listening to this going, man, you've just described my dream job.
Well, maybe.
But
okay, so a surgeon that sits through a day and no communication with the client, just chop.
But I agree with you. I mean, I've had days in my career where that would have been a dream. If I could say, okay, all the people just piss off out the door, bring me the dogs. I don't want to speak to anybody. But that's a problem. It means there's something, you're missing something. I think so. I was missing something at that stage, and exactly like you guys are saying, the satisfaction has come after I got over that and start noticing what is actually where the true value is and where the true satisfaction is. Anyway, I think becoming very philosophical.
This might be a two-parter podcast, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Gerardo, wrap it up. You wrap it up, Gerardo.
No, you wrap it up, man.
Okay. Okay, Cody, we always finish with this one. I feel like you've given a lot of advice already, but you're at a conference, you have the world's new graduate veterinarians listening to you, and you have a couple of minutes to tell them one thing. What's the one thing they need to know from Cody Creelman?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing is Well, it's two parts, but the first part is truly believing in yourself. There's going to be so many challenges that are going to rock that for you, but at the end of the day, you've got yourself this far, and you're going to get yourself the rest of the way. So nobody else is going to do that for you. You truly have to believe in yourself, invest in yourself. You know in your heart what is right. You know in your heart. Where you're going to derive that happiness from. There's going to be fear. There's always fear. And that's the biggest thing that's going to hold you back is the fear of what your mom thinks, the fear of what your spouse thinks, the fear of what the practice owner thinks. That fear does not come from within. It comes from without, right? So you need to recognize that, invest in yourself. Don't worry about the fear. And then expectation for me is something that is just so incredibly huge. You have to recognize that your expectation is what's setting up a lot of sort of frustrations in your life. You expect somebody to behave this way because you behave this way. You expect, somebody's going to make this decision based off of how it affects you. Living life without expectation sounds super cliche, but it is so important. And it's not even just like expectation of other people. There's so much sort of mental things within that. Even the expectation of like, if you expect you're going to have a really shitty day going into practice today before you even get there, what's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. If you have this expectation because you had a bad sleep, and you say, well, I'm going to be grumpy all day, or I'm going to be tired all day. I was talking to this vet student yesterday about being tired, right? We had talked about how do you get everything done and the sleep gene and stuff like that. But like being tired, I feel like 90% of being tired is because you expect to be tired. Right? Because you had a short sleep, because it's so mental. Life is so incredibly mental. So if you only got 2 hours of sleep, but you've told yourself that you're going to have a great day, this is going to be a great day. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to have all the energy in the world. If you're going into life with that mindset, you're going to be able to move mountains. So that's that expectation from yourself. If you expect you're going to be dog tired and you're going to feel bad and, I expect I'm going to have a headache at 1 p.m. Like, guess what's going to happen? All of that's going to happen, right? So living life without expectation, or at least living life with a positive sort of expectation is for me so important, because life is just a mental game at the end of it. So I think that is really the biggest advice that I think is missing from veterinary students or young veterinarians.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
You're a gentleman. I can't wait to see what's next and to see what comes out of what you produce for us. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
So if people were listening to this podcast in the future, is there like a website that they can go to find out more about you, or is it? Yeah.
Just go to just my first name, last name.com. So codycreelman.com. We'll have all of my information. I pride myself on answering all my DMs and emails. So if somebody has any question at all, my email is cody@codycreelman.com. It is the most pretentious email in the world, to have your email being cody@codycreelman.com. I totally get it. But it's easy for everybody to remember. So nobody should ever forget my email. So just drop me a line, and I would love to connect. And that's why I do what I do, because I enjoy connecting in this profession and in this life. So thank you guys so much for having me on.
Anytime. We'll do it again. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Vet Vault. And remember, if you are enjoying this, to tell at least 3 of your friends, and head over to the iTunes store for that 5-star review. We'll see you again next time.